Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif arrived in Azerbaijan's Lakan district on Tuesday as part of his four-nation diplomatic tour to strengthen regional alliances and thank key partners for supporting Pakistan during its recent military standoff with India. Having already visited Turkey and Iran, and with Tajikistan next on his itinerary, Shahbaz continues his strategic outreach. In Lakan, he was received by Azerbaijani Foreign Minister Ceyhan Bayramov ahead of the Pakistan-Turkey-Azerbaijan Trilateral Summit. At this summit, the premier is expected to engage in high-level talks with Presidents 𝐒𝐭𝐨𝐫𝐢 and Recep Tayyip Erdogan, focusing on shared concerns such as Kashmir, water security, and regional cooperation. Shahbaz's delegation includes Army Chief Field Marshal Asim Munir and Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar, underscoring the high-stakes and defense-heavy agenda of the tour. Meanwhile, in economic developments, the government has extended the deadline for submitting expressions of interest in purchasing Pakistan International Airlines (PIA) to June 19. This marks the second attempt to privatize the debt-ridden national carrier, which has previously failed, incurring a public cost of $4.3 million. While the government initially targeted May for completion, the revised plan now opens the door for selling between 51% to 100% of PIA's shares, with final bidding likely between October and December. Notably, PIA recently reported a net profit of 2.26 billion rupees for the first time in 21 years, attributed to operational restructuring under conditions tied to Pakistan's $3 billion IMF deal. However, a full sale was delayed earlier this year after the Election Commission advised the caretaker government not to proceed close to the February 2024 general elections. In the broader regional defense context, India has greenlit the development of its most advanced stealth fighter jet amid heightened military tensions with both Pakistan and China. The twin-engine, fifth-generation aircraft will be developed by the state-run Aeronautical Development Agency, with involvement from both private and public firms. This decision comes as India's Air Force faces a squadron shortfall, relying heavily on aging French and Russian jets. In contrast, Pakistan has modernized its air fleet with Chinese-made J-10 fighters, which it claims were deployed against India's Rafale jets during the recent conflict, a four-day clash that included drones and missiles and ended with a US-brokered ceasefire. The episode has accelerated South Asia's entry into a drone-centric arms race, even as India's military-industrial complex attempts to overcome delays linked to domestic manufacturers like Hindustan Aeronautics. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz issued his strongest criticism of Israel to date on Tuesday, calling recent airstrikes on Gaza no longer comprehensible or justified by the fight against Hamas. Speaking from Finland, Merz's comments signal a notable shift in Germany's traditionally unwavering support for Israel, rooted in its post-Holocaust policy of Staatsräson, or special responsibility. Foreign Minister Johann Wadephul echoed the criticism, while members of Merz's junior coalition partner, the Social Democrats, called for halting arms exports to avoid German complicity in potential war crimes. Merz, who previously pledged to host Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu despite an ICC warrant, now says he will discuss Gaza with him directly. Public opinion appears to be driving the change. A recent Civi poll shows 51% of Germans oppose weapons sales to Israel. Only 36% of Germans view Israel positively, down from 46% in 2021. Germany's anti-Semitism commissioner, Felix Klein, also questioned Berlin's blanket support, arguing that Holocaust guilt cannot justify Israel's current actions. Observers say this marks an unprecedented moment where grassroots pressure is reshaping elite policy, even as Israel's ambassador in Berlin emphasized ongoing diplomatic dialogue. This emerging European unease aligns with growing condemnation from Muslim-majority nations like Pakistan, which continues to decry Israel's operations in Gaza. In a statement earlier this week, Pakistan's Foreign Office labeled Israel's strike on a school sheltering displaced families as a reprehensible act, highlighting the large number of child casualties. Islamabad called for an immediate end to the violence and demanded accountability for what it views as violations of international law. It also criticized ongoing provocations at Al-Aqsa Mosque, warning of heightened regional instability. The Pakistani government emphasized the importance of preserving the legal and religious sanctity of Muslim holy sites, urging the global community to intervene before the humanitarian situation worsens further. A senior Palestinian official claimed Monday that Hamas had agreed to a proposed ceasefire deal involving a 70-day truce and the release of 10 Israeli hostages in exchange for a partial Israeli withdrawal from Gaza and the release of Palestinian prisoners. The official said the plan had been conveyed through mediators and attributed it to U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff. However, Witkoff swiftly denied that the proposal was his, calling it completely unacceptable. An Israeli official also dismissed the claim, stating that no responsible Israeli government could accept such terms and that the deal was not tied to any U.S. initiative. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu commented briefly in a social media video, saying he hoped to share developments soon, though his office declined to elaborate. The report comes amid ongoing fighting in Gaza, which reignited in March after the collapse of a January ceasefire. Hamas has expressed willingness to release all hostages if Israel agrees to a full withdrawal and a permanent ceasefire, terms Netanyahu has rejected, insisting the war will continue until Hamas is dismantled. The conflict has now killed nearly 54,000 Palestinians, with humanitarian conditions rapidly worsening. Russian forces have captured 4 villages in Ukraine's Sumy region, 𝐄𝐽𝐬, 𝐵𝐶𝐽𝐬, 𝐵𝐶𝐽𝐬, and 𝐒𝐴𝐬, signaling a strategic attempt to establish a buffer zone near the border. Though previously evacuated, the village's fall marks a growing challenge for Kyiv, which is under pressure across multiple fronts. This move follows a wave of Russian drone and missile strikes, prompting Ukraine to retaliate with long-range drone attacks that disrupted airports in Moscow and hit targets near the Russian border. Simultaneously, Dutch intelligence agencies have exposed a state-sponsored Russian hacking group dubbed Laundry Bear behind major cyber attacks on Dutch police, NATO, and other European institutions. The group remained undetected until September 2024, gaining access to sensitive data related to military procurement and technology restricted under sanctions. Officials warn these cyber attacks are part of a broader Russian strategy to undermine Western support for Ukraine. Meanwhile, despite intense fighting in Donetsk and mounting offensives in Sumy, Kharkiv, and Zaporizhzhia, diplomatic efforts remain fragile. Recent peace talks, the first in over 3 years, collapsed amid mutual accusations. Russia claimed Ukraine, with European backing, was undermining negotiations through continued strikes, while President Zelensky urged the West to increase sanctions. U.S. President Donald Trump condemned Russian President Vladimir Putin as absolutely crazy, suggesting more sanctions could follow. As both military and cyber hostilities escalate, hopes for a peaceful resolution continue to fade, with civilians bearing the brunt of a conflict that shows no signs of easing.